All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is a pretty big news update on Palantir. I cannot take any of the credit for the information that I'm about to present in this video. Everything will be in the description, and all the credit will be to the person who actually did the hard investigative journalism to find this stuff out. But man, this stuff is crazy, and this stuff has got me stepping up my due diligence game up a little harder because what this person did was pretty awesome. So we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to hop straight into my computer. We're going to look at what they have disclosed, how they found Palantir may be working with some major companies that have yet to be announced, that if will be announced could potentially really significantly increase the value that people perceive that Palantir has. And then we're going to talk more about how they got this information. Let's jump into my computer. Okay, so this information comes from the person named Ether Square. That is on Twitter, and I'm going to show their Twitter right here. So definitely go follow them out on Twitter because they are doing some really deep due diligence on this stuff. And they basically put out a dossier on all this leaked information that they ended up finding. And leaked isn't really the right word. They just did a lot of investigative journalism to find it, but nonetheless, they found it. And this is a dossier on Palantir. Now, before we go further into this, I was doing a podcast with a friend a couple months ago, and he used the word dossier. And as soon as he said dossier, I was like, hold on, what does that word mean? Because there is no way someone casually throws out that word. And dossier, let's show the definition right here, is a collection of documents about a particular person, event, or subject. It is totally fine for this person to leak this document and call it a dossier on Palantir because it is a collection of documents and events and ideas around Palantir. But for my friend to use it in the middle of a sentence while we were doing that podcast was absolutely insane and ridiculous. He meant to say essay, but he said dossier. I was just like, you're being extra for this. But anyway, dossier on Palantir. Let's get into it. So, couple things in this document that describe how this happened, but basically this person did a lot of Googling, they did a lot of sort of internal backlinking, and they found different links and subdomains that ultimately link Palantir to other companies, and there's some evidence and logic here for why a lot of these things are true. So again, I'll link it in the description. You guys can check it out even further and go through this whole thing yourself. But here's the main thing you want to look at, which are the non-confirmed companies that are on Foundry. This is the most important thing. As you can see, we have some pretty big names here: Accenture, Pfizer, General Electric, General Motors, Wendys, HBC, Lockheed Martin. This is a defense company. This is a bank. This is a big fast food restaurant. These are two. This is a major General Electric consumer goods company. General Motors, major car and automobile company. Pfizer, biotech, Accenture consulting. We already know Accenture and Palantir work together very closely just on some other documents that have been put out, and Accenture publicly saying that they recommend Palantir to their clients. So that's actually not that much of a surprise. But these are big, right? RBC, PepsiCo, Comcast, that hasn't been announced, John Deere, Medtronic. These are major Fortune 500 companies across the entire world. The Kuwait oil company, like these are some pretty big companies. Deloitte makes sense because Accenture's a consulting company. Deloitte's a consulting company. So a lot of this stuff seems to make sense in terms of why they would even be working with Palantir. Dave & Buster's, right? When this is what gets me excited, because the potential of Palantir to work with every single company in the world in terms of being the backbone of the infrastructure for how those companies analyze and make decisions based upon paradigms of data that Palantir Foundry, which is their flagship software, initiates within the structure of the company. That's what gets me super excited. So how did this person find out all this stuff? Well, if you go down to some of their, let me zoom in a little bit, links for the Palantir. So these are Palantir cloud subdomains. And then we have PalantirFoundry.com. So this is the really interesting stuff. And shout out to this person because they did some hard work finding this stuff out. But basically, if we were to go to Wendys.PalantirFoundry.com, so let's do that right now. We are going to get into this login, which is for Wendys, right? So basically it's a subdomain because Wendys.Palantir.Foundry.com shouldn't link to a Wendys login website, right? Like if I just typed in Wendys.bluesky.com, like that wouldn't link to this. But because it's tracked with subdomains, it's kind of just how the internet works, right? Where there's backlinks linking to this, linking to that, it goes to another link, which is the official website of Wendys. Now you may be asking, how do we know this is a real sort of list of companies that make sense? Well, these links work for other companies that Palantir has already worked with. And some of those companies are the SPACs, like Lilium.PalantirFoundry.com. I did a video on them. We had some other ones in here, like Black Sky. I know that was there. Cellularity. So that was one of the biotech SPACs that Palantir invested in that uses placenta-based cellular therapies. You guys should definitely check out that video that I did on them because it's pretty interesting to see what they're doing. Boxed is another one that Palantir invested in. Black Sky, here we go, that Palantir invested in. So these are just basic SPACs that Palantir has been working with. These are confirmed partnerships, so it makes sense that blacksky.palantir.foundry.com has a subdomain and a link that actually links back to the website. And then you see all these other websites that are doing the exact same thing. So again, these are some crazy websites, right? We have Deloitte, we have Gumdrop Management, we have Intel, even though that was, I think IBM. Sorry, I'm confusing Intel for IBM. IBM and Palantir have announced a partnership, but Intel hasn't. So, I mean, the Medtronic, so you've got Space Jam. Like, that one's interesting. That means, was that like LeBron's movie company where they working together with Palantir Foundry to analyze it? Like, what are the unlimited amount of use cases that exist for this company, and how many different places could they work? It's just really, really interesting stuff. WeWork, that makes a lot of sense to me. When you're analyzing a ton of data to get the best real estate deals, I mean, that makes logical sense. Lockheed Martin, defense company, Tyson Chicken, they do a lot of poultry stuff. That makes sense to me. And just a lot of other different companies that exist. Kinder Morgan, this is another reason why this is a little bit more trustworthy of a list. I did a whole video on them. They have officially partnered with Palantir. Kinder Morgan makes about $11 billion in revenue per year, and they work with Palantir to optimize their data for gas and oil, because they're a gas and oil company. So really, really interesting stuff. I highly recommend all of you guys check this out in the description. Go through it yourself, and some really, really interesting stuff that's going on here. So my overall thoughts on this, the reason I wanted to make a video on this is because, number one, it shows the depth and analysis that the retail investors in this community are doing, right? I think I do some decent research on Palantir. I've made a decent number of videos talking about all my thoughts and analyses on certain videos, on certain topics. But I want to go deeper as well. I want to learn and research as much as more I can about the company, because this is one of those companies which, again, feels like Tesla back in 2016, 2017, where the more you can dig, if you can understand certain elements of Wright's Law, if you can understand certain elements of how electric battery costs are decreasing, if you can understand the use case potential of autonomous taxis, you can really start to understand how the company is going to scale and how they're ultimately going to be a monopoly. And when you find all these different subdomains, I mean, these are companies that have not been announced. Now, if they announce them, are they going to like break the stock price? Is it going to go parabolic? Maybe, but also maybe not, right? I think what's happening right now is Palantir has publicly stated they have 3 stages by which they acquire customers. They introduce them to the product, they give them sort of a trial run and integrate with their entire company, let them have specific use cases of it, and then they ultimately try to sell them on like having a multi-year partnership with them to work with them. And because it's such a sticky company and it has such sticky features, that third closing deal starts to make sense to a lot of companies, especially if they're seeing the value of the time and money that they're saving by using Palantir. So I think with a lot of these companies, maybe like Wendys and Accenture and Deloitte, they've probably already integrated with them. They've already worked with them for a while. And now it's a question of, can they lock them in? And once they lock them in, that's when you get the press releases. That's when you get the exposure of all of these in their upcoming, earnings reports. And those are the things that, even if the revenue number doesn't jump astronomically high because they're not making a ton of revenue, the fact that they're even working with a lot of these companies that are major public companies, for a SaaS business that is extremely sticky, to be working with all these companies, that perception in and of itself is going to be incredibly important. And then, it's a question of how do they strategically release those. They might have been working with Wendys since last year for all we know, but they want to release it at a time where they think it's going to meaningfully affect the stock price and when it's going to give sort of a boost in public perception. There's a lot of strategic value towards how they disclose these types of things. And there's a lot of strategic value towards the numbers at which they can disclose these things, because they officially confirmed them and now they're getting real revenue, even if before they were getting a tiny bit of revenue. And the real revenue is what they want to show to the public, because that's ultimately going to be something that helps the stock price. So really, really interesting stuff. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. I'm really enjoying this community and how much deep dive and digging we're doing into this stock, because it is a complex company to understand. And if you understand it and you understand the potential of it, you won't be afraid necessarily to invest in it. But if you don't understand the potential of it, if you don't understand why every company in the world theoretically could use them, every government or organization, every nonprofit, every big institution that handles a lot of data, if data truly is the new oil, as the cliche is on this channel, then you've ultimately got a decision to make. And my decision is to invest with them, because I see the value in them. And stuff like this, when it keeps coming out, you start to realize, damn, like, this is a company that actually might really start to do stuff. Not financial advice, do your own due diligence, but stuff like this is adding to the due diligence of this community that I think is super, super valuable. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you guys think on this. Thank you for watching. My name is Mitt. I'll see you in the next one.